My name is Alice Cummins, and I was a very successful businesswoman in Kalgoorlie. In fact, all of Western Australia in the 1920s, 30s and 40s. I grew up in Adelaide and was the first female barrister and solicitor admitted to the bar in both South Australia, where I studied, and Western Australia, where I later moved. But I never practiced the law. Instead, I turned my father's business into an empire. I was a formidable businesswoman and a successful brewer, but if you were to read about me in the papers, you would see me described as quiet, generous, and of a kindly spirit. One can be both, I suppose. Not that quiet and kindly were traits that would serve you well running a business empire, especially not as a woman. Instead of practicing law, I started as a ledger keeper at my father's company, Kalgoorlie Brewing and Ice Co. I loved everything about it and was determined to be a great brewer. In fact, you can still see the big sign for Kalgoorlie Brewing on the water tower in Merredin as you drive through town. It was my idea to turn our focus from the production of English-style beers to the top fermentation process of German lagers. My father thought I was simply brilliant and made me the director of the Merredin brewery. Not a typical job for a woman at the time. My father thought me brilliant. My mother less so. My parents didn't agree on the subject of alcohol. My father died in London in 1926, making me the managing director and major shareholder of all of his enterprises. A massive undertaking, but one I'd been training for my entire working life. Well, you can imagine what some of the men working at the company thought about that. Working for the boss lady. Ha! They could think what they like. I was the boss and I was damn good at it too. I used my personal assets to expand the business and raised capital to install new plant equipment to improve production. It was at around this time that rival breweries started expanding into our markets and tying hotels into contracts to only stock their beers. So I went out and bought my own hotels. The York in Kalgoorlie, the Palace in Southern Cross, a pub in Merredin, and at least half a dozen others. When we launched Hannans Lager in 1937, it escalated our consumption figures considerably, much to the annoyance of the Swan Brewery, our main competitor at the time. My new beer captured more than a quarter of their existing market, making them less of a competitor and not much of a threat. They were not happy. They made a number of offers to buy my brewery over the years, but I'd never sell. It wasn't until a few years after my death that my family finally sold to them. I made many regular business trips between Kalgoorlie, Perth and Merredin, almost always in my black Chrysler or Lincoln limousine. Why would you drive anything else? I travelled with Molly, who also accompanied me overseas and remained my live-in companion at my Merredin home for many years. We hosted some fabulous parties and often entertained celebrities when we were at home. I missed Molly greatly when she moved back to Melbourne with her daughters, and when I died in 1943, I bequeathed most of my fortune to her and her family. My rift with the Catholic Church was well known after they removed my father's ashes from the Merredin cemetery. So when I died, I was cremated with Anglican rites. I guess I could hold a grudge.